So we have this magic model of clay, and it's kind of hard to tell, but I actually have two colors here. I have like a pink and an orange. I'm going to give Azalea the orange, and I'm going to have the pink. So before you start, and we're on page 3 now, before you start, you can talk to the kids a little bit about the clay. So today you're going to be making a clay brain. You'll get to take your clay home. Today you'll get to take your brain home at the end of the day. We usually have the teachers make a little spot in their classroom to store the clay brains. And you can we'll check with the teacher every time just to make sure. We had a little bit of an incident where clay started flying around a school early in the day, and so the school wasn't very appreciative of that. Depending on the teacher, I've had teachers that say no, they get to take it with them. I have other teachers that definitely are like, yeah, I'll make a little spot for them and they can keep it there until the end of the day. The clay here is special. If you keep it in a sealed baggie, it will stay moldable. If you leave it out, it will dry out, but one thing that you can't do with it is put it underwater and get it to turn back into moldable clay. So I have kids oftentimes that are like, I want the red one, I want the blue one. They want a particular color, and I tell them, don't worry, you're going to end up with 2 colors, so don't worry about what color you get. That kind of reduces their stress about it and them insisting on a specific color. So the brain has 2 sides to it. It has a right side and it has a left side. So it's split down the middle. And it is symmetrical. Does anyone have a guess what symmetrical means? Do you have any ideas?
It's the same.
It means it's the same, right? So with our faces are actually pretty symmetrical. We have a nostril on one side, nostril on the other side, eye, ear. So if you split it down the middle, it's pretty eyebrow. So with the brain, it's symmetrical as well. So both sides look the same. So what we do on one side of our brain, we're going to do on another side. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do the first step. The first step, we're going to split our clay into 2 pieces. 2 pieces. Roughly the same size. If you need to, you can pinch off a little bit and put it on another side if you need to. All right, now what I want you to do is take one of your halves and hand it to your neighbor. So we're going to swap the clay. And then what I want you to do is you're going to take your favorite color, whatever your favorite color is, and you're going to kind of make it into like this little oval tube. And what I want you to do is do 2/3 on one side cut and 1/3 on the other side. So you're going to make a small piece and a big piece. All right. Now I want you to do the same on the other large piece of clay. So you should end up with 2 small pieces and 1 larger piece. And you might notice that I keep using the word piece. You can also use the word lump. I try and avoid ball because they are middle schoolers and they find that it can be funny sometimes. So I say pieces. All right, so we have 2 small pieces that are different colors, and we have 2 large pieces that are different colors. We're going to take our 2 small pieces and we're going to put them off to the side. And we're going to take out one of our large pieces. Take your favorite color, and we're going to roll it out like a piece of pasta. So we're going to start it out, and we want it to end up about the width of a pencil. Sometimes it's easy if you roll from the center and then work your way out. And your piece might end up pretty long. So about like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. So right now we're going to make our cortex of our brain. And the cortex is that big, large pink area, the light pink color. That whole part is the cortex. And then the very front part of it is the prefrontal cortex. So we're going to make our cortex. And if you look at our cortex, it's all sort of squiggly, right? Very squiggly. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll from one end. Here, I'll move the tissue. We're going to roll from one end over to the other end, but we don't want to do it perfect. Instead, we want it to be every which way. So the way that I do it is I start rolling it in on my hand and just sort of keep rolling it every which way. Just waggle it in, and then you end up with sort of a random ball of pasta. Nicely done. So now I said the brain is symmetrical. So what do you guys think I do with the other large piece of clay?
The same thing.
The same thing. So I'm going to start off by rolling out. And remember, this is 6th graders, so they're the youngest that we work with. And so this sort of activity and sort of giving them an opportunity to say, what do you think we do with this side of this lump of clay? They're like, oh, it's the same. It's right up their age alley. It really fits with their development level. When you're ready, we're going to roll that in. All right, so now we have our 2 pieces of clay. Now, with your brains, there's a center line that goes right up the middle of your brain. And those two, it's where the 2 sides come together, and it's flat. So we need to make that a flat space, but we need to be really careful because we don't want to mash up our beautiful random pasta. So what we do is we cup our pasta gently in our hand, and then we're going to tap it 3 times on the desk, really gently, tap, tap, tap. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Tap, tap, tap. And then we're going to take our 2 halves of our brains and put the flat sides together. So we have these 2 flat sides, and we're going to put them together like that. I've done it with kids where I go, da, 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 and they really like it. All right, so, and if you need to, you can kind of shape your brain a little bit, make it, gently shape it, because you don't want to squish your pasta too much. Make it sort of egg-shaped. So right now what we have is our cortex of our brain. Our cortex of our brain is the main part of our brain where our 5 senses happen. It's where our memories happen, and it's also where our decision-making happens. Does anyone remember what the name of this place where decision-making happens is? What it's called? It's okay if you're trying to sound it out.
The prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, it's the prefrontal cortex. And you can also reverse that question. You can say, the prefrontal cortex, does anyone remember what happens there? And so the prefrontal cortex is in the front part of your brain. Everybody touch your forehead. Anybody ever see somebody when they're really trying to think something through, they tap their forehead on a show or something? And that's your prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex is where all your decision making happens, and it's the last thing to finish developing. So now that we have our beautiful cortex, we're going to make our cerebellum. Everybody say cerebellum.
Cerebellum.
Cerebellum. So cerebellum is such a pretty name. We're going to make our cerebellum using our smaller pieces of clay. Now our cerebellum is sometimes called the little brain. And so it's very similar to the cortex, but smaller. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to take one of our pieces and we're going to roll it out. And this one, it'll end up much smaller. And then we're going to fold it in on itself again. And we're going to make sure it's nice and random because it's a little brain. All right. Now what do you think we do with the other one?
The same thing.
The same thing. And usually about now or a little bit before I start doing the cerebellum, I sort of check the time to make sure that how much time we have left. With the 6th grade lesson, there's a lot of time available. So it might be that you have 25 minutes instead of 20 minutes to make these brains, or some of them might have asked you a lot of questions during the video, and so it might be that you have less time. So I just sort of checked to see, okay, I need 15 minutes to do the closing, so we have 7 minutes left, okay, and I just sort of let the room know. If I'm not there, then somebody else has to be keeping track of time. So we take our cerebellums, our halves of our cerebellums, and we tap, tap, tap very gently, tap, 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 tap. And then we're going to put the 2 together. And then your cerebellum, if you look, it's just a little bit down and towards the back of your brain. So you need to decide what side's your front of your brain. So everybody point to the front, and the front is in between the two colors. So in between your two colors is your front. And then your cerebellum is going to go opposite of that and then sort of down into the back. And you can match up the colors. So like this. And if a kid doesn't match up the colors, that's okay. Some kids end up putting it sort of in a funky spot, and you just sort of help them adjust it. All right, so now we have our brains. We have our cerebellum and our cortex. So our cerebellum has to do with our balance. So what I want us to do is I want us to get up, and we're going to push in our chairs, and we're going to stand behind them. All right, now without touching your chairs, what I want you to do is I want you to put your foot up on your knee. It's kind of like a yoga stance. All right, and some of you guys might already feel your cerebellum working. You can feel it in your ankle adjusting. That is your cerebellum trying to keep you balanced. So now what I want you to do is take your arms and put them in a big circle, going one way. All right, go the other way. So you can feel your cerebellum working really hard right now. And that's you trying to stay upright. That's your balance. So your cerebellum has to do with balance. You can have a seat again. And it also has to do with coordination. And if you look, sorry to go back, in the lesson plan on page 4, it has more talking points about cerebellum. So if there's time, sometimes there is, you can talk to the kids about the occipital lobe, which is above where your cerebellum is in the cortex. And it's on both sides. Your occipital lobe is where your vision is taken into your brain. What's interesting there is your left eye will go on to the right side of your brain, and your right eye will go on to the left side of your brain. And also that's the same thing with sensory. If I'm touching this side of the body, it's actually coming up on the other side of the brain. If there is still more time, you can talk about the temporal lobe, which is at the bottom of the brain on the side. The temporal lobe has to do with mostly hearing and listening. The parietal lobe, which is sort of the back triangular spot here, that has where your taste, temperature, and touch are sensed. And then the frontal lobe, which has the prefrontal cortex in it, is your higher thinking and learning. Very rarely do we have enough time to talk about those kinds of things, but I put it on there just in case your group is exceptional and you end up with some extra time.